Most people don't lose respect in a dramatic collapse. They give it away quietly, day by day, through small decisions that seem harmless. It starts when you lower your standards just to be liked, when you laugh at what you don't find funny, when you allow others to interrupt your silence with their noise. You see, respect isn't taken, it's surrendered. The moment you let someone speak over your truth just to avoid conflict, you're training them to ignore your presence. And every time you choose comfort over boundaries, you trade your authority for approval. Power fades not with a bang, but with a nod. This world doesn't reward those who wait to be seen. It rewards those who command the room with their silence. Not loud voices, not empty gestures, but the energy of someone who has full dominion over themselves. The kind of energy you can't fake. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He knew that the perception of power often outweighs the power itself. But here's the twist. When you speak too much, explain too much, apologize too much, you lose the edge that makes others respect you without question. This isn't about manipulation, it's about philosophy. It's about rebuilding your influence from within, the kind that doesn't shout for attention but demands presence through poise, self-mastery, and emotional discipline. These are not traits you're born with, they're forged through inner warfare. In this video, you'll discover the 4 silent behaviors that erode your authority without you noticing. Each one is a subtle poison that, if left unchecked, makes you invisible to those who once admired you. And worse, they make you forget the leader you were meant to become. But this isn't just a warning, it's a blueprint, because once you identify these habits, you can reverse them and reclaim the influence that was always yours. Not by pleasing, not by performing, but by embodying a new standard that others can't help but notice and respect. So if you've ever felt overlooked, disrespected, or like something deep inside you is being ignored, this video was made for you. And by the time we finish, you'll understand exactly why power isn't something you demand. It's something you radiate. Giving too much explanation weakens your power. Every time you over-explain yourself, you shrink. You're not clarifying, you're justifying. And the moment you start justifying, you surrender your authority. People don't respect what's constantly explained. They respect what's calmly asserted. Influence doesn't need permission, it needs presence. Machiavelli would say, "He who explains too much is already doubted," because the truly powerful man doesn't need to prove his intentions. He lets his results speak. Think about it. When a leader makes a move and then begins justifying every angle, he looks uncertain, not strong. In conversation, it often starts subtly. You share an idea, then you panic and begin adding layers, excuses, reasons. "I just thought because maybe you don't agree," but that spiral is invisible self-sabotage. The listener doesn't hear your truth, they hear your fear of not being accepted. Power is in precision. The more words you use, the more cracks you create for others to doubt you. Think of a judge. Does he explain for 10 minutes or deliver a sentence with clarity and silence? It's the silence after the statement that holds weight, not the rambling before it. This also applies to emotional boundaries.
You say no to someone, but then explain for 5 minutes why you can't help them. You've turned a boundary into a request for sympathy. A true boundary is short, sharp, and final. And ironically, it earns more respect than a 500-word apology. Want to regain that energy? Start training yourself to say less when it feels uncomfortable. Respond with calm, not justification. Use pauses. Use eye contact. Let people feel the weight of your words in the silence that follows. Silence, when mastered, speaks louder than logic. A practical way to build this is to observe powerful speakers. Watch military generals, high-level CEOs, even ancient Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius. Their words are few, but their presence is full. Read The Prince by Machiavelli again, and notice how strategy isn't explained, it's executed. Because those who hold real power don't narrate it, they embody it. And when you stop feeding people explanations, they start feeding you attention. Strange how that works, isn't it? Almost as if the less you try to be understood, the more people want to understand you.
Speaking without intention is a trap of the weak. When you speak without purpose, your words become noise. And noise is the language of those who lack direction. The more you talk without intention, the less people take you seriously. Power doesn't shout, it whispers with precision. In a world full of talkers, silence becomes a strategy. Machiavelli warned, words are the masks of deeds. People use language to conceal weakness, not to expose strength. The one who speaks just to fill silence reveals more than he protects. He shows his hunger to be heard, and that hunger kills his authority before he even realizes it. Most people fear silence in conversations. They feel awkward, so they rush to speak, to explain, to entertain, to impress. But the wise man embraces silence like a weapon. He knows every word should be placed like a sword, clean, sharp, and never wasted on flattery or panic. It's not about being quiet. It's about being calculated. When you speak with intent, each sentence lands. People pause. They lean in. They remember. Think about how rare it is to meet someone who speaks slowly, clearly, and says only what matters. That's not boring. That's magnetic. You want to build influence? Say less. Mean more. Before you speak, ask, does this build my image, my vision, or my leadership? Or am I just feeding my ego's need to be heard? One weak sentence can erase 10 strong ones, but one powerful phrase can build a reputation. Here's something practical. When you're tempted to speak, wait 3 seconds. That pause will teach you control. It'll shift you from reactive to strategic. In those 3 seconds, you become the observer, and the observer always holds more power than the performer. Watch high-level negotiators, elite intelligence officers, or even hardened monks. Their strength isn't in how much they say, but how little they need to. Machiavelli himself wrote with brevity, not verbosity, because influence, like a dagger, works best when it's concealed, then precise. And when people realize you speak only when it matters, they start to listen differently. They wait. They weigh your words. And most importantly, they respect the man who holds his tongue, because they know he holds much more than he reveals.
Lowering your tone to please others kills respect. Every time you soften your truth to make others comfortable, you lose a piece of yourself. And worse, people feel it. They sense when your voice bends, when your standards shrink, when your fire dims just to keep the peace. Respect dies the moment you choose comfort over clarity. Machiavelli knew this well. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But most people water themselves down in exchange for smiles and approval. They think that being agreeable wins allies, when in truth it breeds contempt. The man who betrays himself invites betrayal from others. You don't earn influence by being liked. You earn it by being consistent. If your tone changes based on who you're speaking to, then your authority is borrowed, not built. The leader who shifts too much is seen as weak, not adaptable. Authenticity isn't about being soft, it's about being solid. Ever notice how some people walk into a room and everyone listens, even if they say little? That's not charisma, that's conviction. They've chosen a tone that doesn't bend, and people feel it in their gut. When your energy is rooted in self-respect, others mirror it. No effort, no performance. Trying to please everyone is exhausting and ineffective. The more you chase harmony, the more disrespected you become. Say what you mean, say it with strength. And if someone is offended by your truth, let them be. You're not here to adjust your power for those who can't handle it. Here's a practical tip. Record your own voice during serious conversations. Listen. Did your pitch rise? Did your tone shrink at the end of sentences? Fix that. Speak with finality, not apology. Your voice must carry the weight of a man who knows who he is and doesn't need approval. Even in disagreements, you can remain firm without becoming hostile. Stoic thinkers like Epictetus taught that dignity is preserved not by volume, but by grounded tone. And Machiavelli would argue that your voice is a weapon. Dull it, and you dull your authority with it. In a world begging for validation, the one who speaks with unwavering energy becomes the exception, and exceptions are remembered. When you stop lowering your tone to please, something strange happens. People rise to meet you, or they disappear. Both are victories.
Apologizing excessively destroys your credibility. There's a difference between being accountable and being apologetic. One builds respect, the other destroys it. When you say sorry for things that don't require it, you're not showing humility, you're signaling weakness. And weakness doesn't attract empathy. It invites exploitation. Machiavelli would call it voluntary disarmament. Every unnecessary apology is like handing your enemy your own sword. Why? Because constant apologies tell people you doubt your own decisions, your worth, your presence. And once you doubt it, they'll start doubting too. People who apologize excessively are often trying to be perceived as kind or polite. But what they don't realize is this. When you apologize too much, people stop hearing sincerity and start hearing insecurity. And in matters of power and respect, insecurity is poison. Let's say you're late once. You apologize. Fair. But then you over-apologize. I'm so sorry, I feel terrible. I understand if you're upset. It won't happen again. That's not accountability. That's begging for forgiveness. It's giving up your ground, and it's giving others control of the narrative. A powerful man owns his actions, but does not grovel for redemption. He says what's necessary once with strength. I was late. It won't happen again. Period. Clear. Final. No guilt dance. Because excessive guilt isn't noble,
It's a strategy to be liked. And that's not power, that's performance. Train yourself to replace sorry with strength. Instead of saying, "Sorry I bothered you," say, "Thanks for your time." Instead of, "Sorry I talked too much," say, "I appreciate you listening." It's a mental shift from victim to value, from apology to authority. Even in leadership, this matters. When you lead a team or a family and apologize for every firm decision, you weaken your influence. Strong leadership demands clarity, not constant appeasement. Machiavelli would say, "Lead with certainty, not remorse." People crave direction, not doubt. And the more you stop apologizing for your presence, your standards, your tone, the more people begin to respect them. Ironically, the moment you stop seeking approval is the exact moment others begin to give it. Strange how silence, again, holds the final word.
Letting everyone have access to you weakens your power. The man who is always available becomes invisible. That's the irony. When everyone can reach you at any time, they start to believe you're not valuable. And in the eyes of the world, what's abundant is taken for granted. Machiavellian wisdom begins with strategic distance. Machiavelli wrote that a prince must be approachable but not familiar. When you let everyone call, text, vent, or drop in on your time, you lose more than energy. You lose mystique. Influence is rooted in scarcity. What people can't easily have, they start to chase. Think of powerful figures, political leaders, CEOs, philosophers. Their presence is limited, measured, earned. Not because they're arrogant, but because they understand one thing. Time is authority, and those who control their time control their influence. Period. Over-availability screams neediness. Please notice me? Please like me? Please don't forget me? And that energy, even when unspoken, is felt. People instinctively respect those who respect their own schedule and quietly distance themselves from those who don't. You don't need to become cold, just unavailable by default. Set boundaries that protect your presence. Instead of answering every message, respond with purpose. Instead of jumping at every request, pause and evaluate. Is this aligned with your vision, or is it just a distraction in disguise? Here's a challenge. Go 72 hours without responding to non-priority messages. Watch who gets uncomfortable. Watch who pulls back. But more importantly, watch how your mind recalibrates. You'll feel stronger, sharper, less drained. Power flows back when you stop leaking it. And when people do get access to you, make it memorable. Give them presence, not just presence. Be so intentional that they leave the interaction elevated. That's how kings behave. Their time is sacred, and when shared, it leaves impact, not noise, not clutter. Letting people interrupt you destroys your command. Every time someone interrupts you and you allow it, you're not just losing words, you're surrendering territory. Communication is power, and when someone cuts in and you step back, they just took the throne mid-sentence. Machiavelli would call it a coup in conversation. Let's be honest, people interrupt for two reasons. Either they don't respect your presence or they want to test your posture. Either way, silence is not always wisdom. In those moments, your response teaches others how far they can go. Authority is not given, it's enforced. You've seen it in meetings, relationships, even casual talks. The one who always gets cut off eventually becomes the one nobody listens to. And worse, they start interrupting themselves, second-guessing every phrase, diluting their presence until they vanish in plain sight. So how do you handle it without becoming combative? Simple. Pause, reclaim, continue. If someone interrupts, stop talking, not in submission, but in strategy. Let them finish, then calmly say, "As I was saying," and resume. That's power without noise, presence without drama. Your tone matters here. You don't need to raise your voice, just ground it. Speak like someone who doesn't need to compete for attention. That quiet confidence creates a gravity around your words. People learn, often unconsciously, that interrupting you breaks the rhythm, not steals it. And if someone constantly cuts you off, call it. Respectfully, but directly. "I'd like to finish my point." That one line reshapes the dynamic. It signals you're not just speaking, you're commanding space. And people who command space become hard to ignore. Want to train this? Practice storytelling. Tell a story with purpose, pauses, and presence, and resist the urge to rush when others shift in their seats. The man who controls the tempo of a room controls the minds inside it. That's not charisma, that's strategic communication. Eventually, people begin to wait for your words, not because you're louder, but because you're firmer. And in a world full of noise, the one who refuses to be interrupted becomes the one they actually listen to.
Over-explaining yourself weakens your position. When you feel the need to justify every word, every action, every choice, you shift from power to permission. And people don't follow permission, they follow conviction. Machiavelli knew real power doesn't explain, it acts. When you over-explain, what you're really saying is, "I don't fully believe in what I did, so let me convince you." That's not leadership, that's a plea. And the more you explain, the more you open yourself to judgment, reinterpretation, and misinterpretation. Silence, sometimes, is strategy. Let's say you make a decision at work. Instead of stating it clearly, you dive into a speech, reasons, disclaimers, backstory. By the end, no one respects the decision. They analyze your uncertainty. Strong leaders communicate like this: "Here's what we're doing, let's move." Machiavelli would advise this: "Say less, mean more." A king who explains every law invites rebellion. But a king who speaks in clean, final terms, he earns something deeper than agreement. He earns submission. Not by force, but by clarity. That's influence. There's a confidence that comes with restraint. You trust your judgment. You respect your experience. You know your path. So you don't waste breath seeking approval. That energy is redirected toward action, and action, over time, is what builds unshakable authority. Now, this doesn't mean being rude or cold. It means being clear. Practice this. State your point, then stop. Don't fill the silence. Let the silence do the work. People will feel the gravity, they'll think deeper, and they'll begin to mirror your directness with respect. In relationships, too, the same law applies. Stop explaining your standards like they're negotiable. I don't tolerate disrespect. Full stop. No why, no apology. If they ask for one, it tells you all you need to know, because what must always be explained is rarely ever respected.
Eventually, your presence alone becomes an explanation. You won't need to say much. Just being firm, decisive, and centered will speak volumes. And in a world addicted to noise, that kind of quiet power is magnetic.
Reacting emotionally makes you predictable and easy to control. Every time you react emotionally, you hand over the remote control of your mind. The person who can provoke you owns you. That's the harsh truth. And in Machiavellian terms, the man who is easily triggered is easily used. Emotional outbursts reveal your blueprint. Anger, offense, desperation, they all say something loud. Here's how to manipulate me. Think of it like chess. If your opponent knows exactly how you'll move under pressure, they win. Not by strength, but by anticipation. The Stoics understood this too. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters." But Machiavelli would take it further and ask, who gains power from your reaction? Because in politics, war, or life, emotions are weapons, and you can't afford to hand yours over. Picture a boss who loses it when questioned, or a partner who explodes at the slightest disagreement. They think they're asserting dominance, but really they're leaking control. Emotional discipline isn't weakness, it's the highest form of inner command. Want to practice this? Start by observing. When you feel triggered, pause. Breathe. Don't respond, just notice. Say nothing for 10 seconds. That small delay can shift an entire outcome. You'll feel the urge to react, but that's the exact place where power is born. In arguments, your silence will confuse people. It removes their fuel. They expected a reaction, a fight, a defense, a breakdown. But when they get calm, grounded presence instead, they lose control. You win by not playing their emotional game. This doesn't mean becoming numb. Feel everything, just don't perform it. Power isn't about suppressing emotion, but mastering expression. Choose when to speak, choose when to act, and choose who actually deserves access to your emotional world. Most don't. Eventually, your emotional detachment becomes legendary. Not coldness, but precision. And those who once sought to manipulate you will back away, unsure of where your buttons even are. That's when you become untouchable. And from there, the real strategy begins.
Accepting disrespect once invites it forever. The first time you accept disrespect, you're not being the bigger person. You're signing a contract, a silent agreement that says, this is allowed. Machiavelli would warn you, power isn't lost all at once. It's given away, quietly, one excuse at a time. Disrespect doesn't begin with insults. It starts subtle, being talked over, excluded, dismissed, and when you let it pass, it grows teeth. People test your limits the way water tests a dam, one crack at a time. If you don't reinforce the wall, the flood is inevitable. Letting it slide might feel noble, even wise. But ask yourself, did your silence raise their respect or lower your own? In strategy, perception is reality. If people see that you tolerate being diminished, they stop seeing you as a leader. And worse, they mirror that behavior. Reclaiming that power starts with setting non-negotiables, quietly, calmly, with posture. You don't need a dramatic speech, just a line. I don't allow that. Or even simpler, walk away. When people feel your boundaries in action, not explanation,
they start recalibrating their tone. This applies to every area of life, in relationships, in business, online. When someone crosses the line, you don't need to prove you're hurt, you need to prove you're unavailable for mistreatment. That's not pride, that's self-governance. That's strategy. Want an exercise? Identify the last time you were disrespected and said nothing. Now imagine rewinding that moment and responding with quiet firmness. No rage, no explanation, just presence. That mental rehearsal retrains your instinct from freeze to frame. And don't expect applause for it. Some will resist, some will call you cold, arrogant, dramatic. Let them. They were only comfortable with the version of you who accepted crumbs. The new you, he demands the full table or walks away from the feast. Eventually, disrespect won't even find its way to your door. Not because the world got nicer, but because your energy changed. You no longer signal weakness. And when people feel that, they either rise to your standard or quietly remove themselves.
Seeking validation silently destroys your power. Validation feels sweet in the moment, a like, a nod, a compliment. But the more you crave it, the more you shrink. Machiavelli would say, the man who needs approval to act is already ruled. He's not a leader, he's a product of other people's opinions. It starts early. We're trained to please, to perform, to be liked. But power isn't built on applause. It's built in silence, in choices made when no one is watching. When you stop needing external confirmation, you begin the true journey of self-rule. Social media made this worse. People post for attention, not expression. They confuse reach with relevance. But Machiavelli knew popularity is fragile. What's praised today is crucified tomorrow. The wise build power behind closed doors, then reveal it when it's unshakable. Here's how to break the cycle. Delay praise. Do something difficult and don't tell anyone. Master something in secret. Build silently. When you finally show it, it won't be for validation. It'll be a statement, a presence, a reminder. Real influence needs no announcement. Think of the most respected leaders. They don't chase validation. They carry certainty. They speak less, but everything they say lands because they've trained their identity to be internal, not external. And when that happens, criticism loses its grip too. If you still seek approval, it's okay. Just notice it. Awareness is step one. Then ask, who taught me that I need to be validated to feel worthy? Challenge that voice. Replace it with one that says, I validate myself through mastery, not through mirrors. Eventually, you'll move different. Walk into rooms without checking how you're perceived. Speak without rehearsing for approval. Create without wondering who claps. And ironically, that's when people start to respect you the most, when you no longer need them to. And that's the paradox of true power. When you finally stop chasing validation, the world begins to validate you without being asked.
Now that you've seen the habits, what will you do with them? Ignore them like most people do, or finally treat your behavior like your armor? Every word, every silence, every reaction either protects or exposes you. This is your turning point. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to dominate every room, but you do need to start choosing yourself. That means showing up with posture, not apology, speaking with intention, not insecurity, leading, not pleasing. Let this video be more than information. Let it be a mirror. What did you see in yourself? Where do you give away your power without even noticing? Your answer isn't just a comment, it's a confession of readiness. And maybe, just maybe, your next move begins now. So tell me this, which of the 4 habits have you allowed the longest? Which one are you willing to cut off today?
Write it below. Not for the algorithm, for your future self, the one who's watching you step up or stay silent. If this sparked something in you, then don't leave it here. There's more to uncover, and every week we go deeper into the philosophy of power, emotional self-mastery, and spiritual leadership. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell, not for me, for you. Because truth is, if you don't shape your inner world, someone else will. And when that happens, you're no longer living, you're reacting. And Machiavelli? He never played defense, neither should you. There's a video waiting for you right now, one that continues this exact path. It's on your screen and in the description. Watch it next, because once you start building silent power, you'll never live the same way again. And if you made it this far, that already says something powerful about you. Most people won't, but you're not most people. So comment, subscribe, and come back. You've just stepped into a room where influence isn't taught, it's forged.